Grab me.
Oh my goodness, guys. What just happened? Hey, look. Look at the size of that fish. That is a Rough River stud. That is an old fish. Look at the gut on that fish. Hunter, grab me the scales out of there, buddy. What you do is you get, like I said, you know, you pick up a crankbait and fish these bluff ends. And these fish, they get on them this time of year. They want that vertical structure. And this old fish was right there in the wheelhouse. He was perfect. I mean, he was right there where he should be. Let's get this big girl back in the water. That was awesome.
Let's watch.
Come on, girl.
Come on.
Thanks for playing, baby. Thanks for playing. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of So In Outdoors. If you guys like the content that you're seeing, the things that we're putting out there, trying to get you guys as much information as we can through the winter months when we're not doing as much fishing, a lot of stuff from the office here. But if you like what you're seeing, hey, hit that subscribe button, turn your notifications on. We got a lot of great content coming your way. We really appreciate that support for the channel. What I want to talk to you today about is rock transitions. As you saw in the clip just a moment ago, we were able to catch a really nice fish fishing rock transitions. Now, they're not all created equal. So the first thing I do whenever I'm fishing these rock transitions or focusing on them is I'm using my mapping, my Lake Master mapping. I'm going through and I'm finding these transition banks, and then through process of elimination, I'm going around and I'm checking them and I'm seeing if they have what I'm looking for. Once I do that, I can kind of narrow down a handful of these areas to target to try to catch some fish. Now, a lot of times these are fish that are somewhat shallow for this time of year. One thing to note about bass in the wintertime is they occupy a smaller percentage of the water column. So whenever you find the fish in that percentage of the water column, you can typically run that for a good portion of the winter and continually catch fish. The hard part is finding that percentage of which they're occupying or that they're living through the winter. The easiest way for me is I always start shallow. There are bass that live fairly shallow all year long. And then I will work out deeper from there. So when I look at these transition banks, it could be chunk rock that leads into a gravel point, or it could be riprap that dead ends into a bank. It could be a bluff that tapers out into a point. This is just kind of I don't want to say bluff, but kind of steeper chunk rock that kind of tapers out just really into almost a mud flat. And with the transitions, those fish will be located in two areas of the transition. They're either going to be on the flat side or they're going to be on the steeper side. In the colder months, colder water, typically they're going to stay closer to those steeper transitions or those steeper side of the transition. And as the water warms, then they're going to move into the flatter area. This particular transition that I'm going to show you here in the mapping is an area that these fish would actually set up more leading into the spring. So you have a steeper transition, you've got the channel that swings in, which is another key factor anywhere that you have that deeper water close by. These fish do not want to have to travel a long distance to get to deep water. Doesn't necessarily mean it has to be a channel bank, but those are also good target areas to look at. They want to be able to move up and down in the water column based on cold fronts and the weather patterns that we're facing, instead of moving laterally where they have to cover distance to get into shallow water. So they're never going to deviate far from deep water, but they're never going to deviate too far from shallow water. So this image here is an area where these fish would set up in the wintertime, that in the spring they would shift over onto that flat that actually leads into a spawning pocket. So the closer you get to spring, you can kind of focus on the flatter side of these transitions. Now, whenever I'm fishing these transitions, it's all about what's under the water. It's what you can't see. That's where your mapping comes in. You really look at your contour lines and see how far they're spaced out. How flat does this bank taper off? Is it a steep drop or does it come out flat? Is there a shelf under the water? It's another very important factor of a transition is there an underwater shelf? Those are fantastic because the fish can then sit out off the edge of that shelf in a little deeper water, and if they want to come up shallow, they don't have to move very far at all. So I'm going to target these areas with a couple different baits. First go-to in kind of cleaner water is going to be a flat-sided crankbait. This here is a Spro Little John, and it's got a custom paint job on it by BJ's Custom Baits. This is actually a color that my son designed. We call it Hunter's Crawl, but if you can see, it's almost got a kind of a transparent hue to it, and it's a very, very natural crawl looking color. And you can get these in this color pattern from BJ's Custom Baits. You can check them out on Facebook. Misconception about fishing a crankbait in the wintertime is bottom contact. Now, normally in warmer water, we want this bait digging. We really want it in the rocks. We want the deflections because that's going to initiate that strike. In the wintertime, fish are lethargic. The bait's more lethargic. I don't want to make a lot of bottom contact. I'd like to fish this out a little farther and actually just every now and then have this bait kind of dig into a rock. I would rather it stay just above the bottom because a lot of times these fish are suspended slightly off the bottom. So fish that are suspended, they typically feed up, meaning they're feeding above their head. So you want to keep this bait up off the bottom and just swimming it along. And I can't stress this enough. Slow down, slow down. Now, if you find a transition that's a little bit deeper, you can go to like a rock crawler. And this would be the Spro rock crawler in the same pattern. Got a nice natural, crawl color to it. There again, semi-transparent. Got the orange belly on it. Beautiful color. Great for clear water. But it's going to be the same thing. I don't want this bait really digging so much in the bottom as I am just keeping it just up, off the bottom. Now, in more of a stained water situation, I'm going to go to more of this is a color that we call root beer float, which is a bait color that I designed that BJ's put together. This is just a root beer, colored crankbait back. It's got a pearl belly and some chartreuse there on the side to give it a little color in the water. Great off-color water crankbait color. The other thing I'm going to typically throw is going to be a good old jig. They catch fish 365 days a year and a great bait to throw in the wintertime. Now, this is a Lost River Lures Rascal jig. Typically what I'm going to do is I'm going to fish a jig that's a little bit lighter in the wintertime. I want that slow fall, but the kicker to the slow fall is a big bulky plastic. This is a Zoom Z crawl on the back, full size. I've cut it in half, and I want a lot of water displacement from my trailer so that I get a nice slow fall. Choose a trailer that doesn't have a ton of action. A regular chunk works fantastic. One of the bigger ones that gives it that nice slow fall. And I'm just going to cast into that transition, and I'm going to fish both sides. I'm going to fish the deeper side. I'm going to fish the shallower side and try to figure out where those fish are positioned. Another image we have here for you is more of a wintertime transition. You've got a steep bank. Doesn't have a whole lot of flat around it, but there are some flat little pockets. Just very, very small indentions that are going to be changes and nuances in that transition or in that rock that creates individual transitions. So you can have a steeper rocky bank that has lots of ins and outs, and every one of those can potentially hold fish. Once you narrow it down and you kind of get some bites, you can use your mapping and you can run all over the lake and really start to dial in which transitions are going to be effective for that particular pattern that you're running. as you can see in the video, this was a transition that just kind of had a small indentation in it, and that's all it took to hold a better quality fish. We caught several short fish on this same stretch, but we had the one big fish that set up just perfectly where that kind of steeper rocky bank tapered off into a small little indentation that just had a couple pieces of wood in it that fish was kind of holding to. So guys, take that information, use it to your advantage, go out and catch you some bass, and send me some pictures. You all catch some out there, send us some pictures. You can contact us on Facebook, So Went Outdoors on Facebook. Message me, send me some pictures. I want to see what you guys are doing and how you're doing. And hopefully we're going to be getting on the water real soon. We've got to get the weather right. I am a warm weather creature. Cold wintertime is a tough time for me to get out, but I do love it when we get those little bit warmer days. I'm going to sneak out and go snag me up a few too. So you guys stay tuned. We got some more stuff coming your way. As always, like, subscribe, comment, share, send it to your buddies. We appreciate it. You all have a great day.
Everything about you